Welcome to Solo Progression, the series where I play through Dungeon Defenders 1 Redux with the goal of beating the crystalline dimension on the hardest difficulty, as well as completing all the achievements. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Solo Progression. Today's episode will be starting off on the bonus map of the campaign, Glitterhelm Caverns on Insane Hardcore. This map is of similar size to Endless Spires, but there's a lot more choke points to cover. I think there's a total of 5, maybe if not 6, as well as wyverns as well. The nice part of this campaign mission is that each character gets a weapon from the end of this, so we're going to make sure to have all of our characters out just so we get more weapons, more chances for good stats on our weapons. I believe Leon gets a nice upgrade from the end of this. The defenses I use in this are pretty standard. I set aura stacks in each lane, as well as fireball towers, magic missile towers, and physical beams to protect each lane from incoming mobs. One thing to note is that you get extra allotted build phase time on this map, which makes it very helpful for being able to place down all your towers in a good amount of time and still be able to play as the character that you want to play as. This pretty much makes it so I'm able to get all my defenses up by wave 2, and then just be able to start upgrading and just playing as Leon. At the end, we pull out all the characters to make sure we get 4 weapons, and I am getting a nice upgrade by Leon, but it actually didn't end up being one of the weapons. But that is what we'll be using on him for now. And let's progress to our next map, which is going to be the Hall of Court on Insane Mode Hardcore Survival. Back to my favorite map in the normal game, and we're here to farm the Genie, as well as try to get a giraffe as well. You get the Genie on wave 15, you get giraffes on wave 25. I'm starting all the way at the start, even though I have it unlocked for my other characters, but I feel like this is the best way to do it. So I started at the lowest round. The setup is similar to Insane Hardcore, but I'm using tower buff beams alongside tower boosts from either monk to reach insane levels of DPS. Now, one thing you'll notice that using these tower buff beams is going to increase damage from all my towers dramatically. This is going to be insanely helpful for pushing forward and going past further than we should, even if we have low defense stats, and it should be able to carry us all the way to the end of this map. The reason why we're going for the Genie is because we want to get mana back from our attacks and be able to upgrade things faster. This is also very useful for the monk in general because the monk drains mana when using its tower boost and hero boost. So what we end up doing before going through wave 15 is that on wave 14 we make sure all of our characters are out on the field, and when wave 15 starts, or wave 14 ends I should say, is that you end up with getting 4 Genies rather than just 1 for having 1 character out on the field. This is really useful because you can get potentially multiple Genies that are of mythical quality or better. And I actually end up getting 1 that is mythical quality, or I actually get 2 that are mythical, one of which is really good on Leon. I upgraded and equipped it on Leon for a bit. I'm going to have this Genie for probably a while, since it just has pretty good stats, good upgrade levels, and I'm going to continue pushing forward to get the giraffe at the end of this, so we have to go to wave 25. Shouldn't be much trouble with our tower buff beams and Leon boosting everything with his Genie now. And for the most part, we didn't have any troubles, so we got to wave 25, there's no extra boss waves, no extra things to deal with, just beat the waves to get the giraffe. We ended up using the same trick to get the 4 giraffes that we did for the Genie. So we end the level off getting 4 giraffes, all of which are all kind of mediocre. They all have around 80 base tower stats, which is still better than what we currently have, but they have much more potential to be a lot better. The issue is that these are randomly rolled at the end of the wave, and the way to farm these, though, is that I don't have to redo the entire thing. I can actually start on wave, I believe, 23, and do 23, 24, 25, and at the end 25, I'll still get my giraffes. You'll see me implement this later on in the series, but right now, these giraffes are good to go. We'll be getting better pets in the future regardless. So we'll use these for now, and with that, we're going to go on to our next map. And that next map being the Red Dungeon on Insane Hardcore Campaign Mode. Going back to get my revenge. We are more than properly geared now, so this should be a good map for some experience and maybe some drops. Keep in mind that the first wave, you really don't get much mana, so I opt to use, I believe, physical beams and auras, and then during the round of the wave 1, I also use my auras on my monk. And the Genie really helps with this because I just get so much more mana, so I'm able to place down everything right then, and then after this wave is complete, I'm able to actually continue placing towers on my other characters and just get all that DU, MU maxed out and have a relatively easy time on this map. You might be noticing this in the video, but Leon is being able to take down ogres pretty handily by himself. He's just using hero boost plus his Genie to gain him more mana, and using the melee weapon I got on him to pretty much shred every enemy that's in his way, and then he takes a little bit of time on the ogres, but he is very useful for early waves of ogre spawn. We just don't have the proper defenses up, but he is going to become a huge asset for these later maps, especially because we'll have more boss fights coming up, and we'll kind of spec him out to be more hybrid, but also more damage, just so he's able to deal with these bosses at a relatively quick pace. Now, at some point, I'm probably just going to make the switch and make him a full-on DPS character, but right now he's doing good enough damage, at least on Insane mode, that we don't have to worry about switching him over just quite yet. But at some point, I will want to get another pet on him, just because the pet he has currently is for keeping up his boosts, but at some point, we also want a pet just to do damage as well. That being said, back to Dread Dungeon here, the drops we're ending up getting is pretty mediocre, but we gain a good amount of experience from this, so it's definitely worth it to do for right now. I should probably going back to do this map on Insane Hardcore Survival to get some more drops or get some pets from it. But right now, it might be a good idea to farm the accessory items you receive at the end of the level. So it might be worth it to run this map just a couple times to see if we get any good accessory slots. Accessory slots are kind of hard to come by. You get them from these bonus maps a lot easier than the regular maps or on Nightmare modes. But for right now, we can get an early supply of them from doing this on Insane Hardcore, and it's quite easy. But we'll revisit this at another time. We've completed the level. We are going to move on to our next level, which is one of the first DLC levels in the game. The first level in the Lost Eternia Shards DLC is Mistymire Forest. We'll be doing this on Insane Hardcore as always. And this map is very interesting in the fact that it adds a new enemy, which are spiders. Spiders can shoot out webs, which make players unable to cast anything and also lowers their damage output. Spiders will also shoot towers, which lowers the damage output and the attack speed of those towers. These are quite annoying, but they don't have too much HP, so the electrical auras that we place around with their spawns will deal with them quite nicely. Issues will arise, though, if our electric towers aren't able to kill these fast enough, and that they start slowing down our towers and making it so our towers get overwhelmed because they're just doing less damage and more mobs are able to get in. Luckily, they can't target auras. I do like Mistymire's map. It has about 4 choke points that you need to cover, as well as the spider spawns, which kind of get covered by your auras in some way. Then it also has 2 wyvern spawns. One is covered by one of the lanes already, and the other wyvern spawn is near one of the crystals, which needs to be protected by a different subset of towers. We use a magic missile and a fireball tower to defend that lane. For the most part, I'm starting to use buff beams now. Buff beams are really useful, as well as making sure each lane has an aura stack, maybe a physical beam as well, and a reflection beam as well to protect it from the spiders, because getting hit by those spiders really puts a damper on what your damage output can be. But anyways, we'll be fighting now the Spider Queen boss. All these Lost Eternia Shards maps have a boss wave at the end of them. Spider Queen boss is quite a difficult boss, I would say, if you don't know what you're doing. The Spider Queen only really takes damage when you expose her shard. To expose her shard, you need to kill each of the spiders that she spawns. Using electrical auras, strength drain auras, ensnare auras, and healing auras should help immensely during this fight. This fight can be a bit annoying because you're constantly getting spider slowed and it's unfun. Do also be careful just getting kind of comboed. You'll get hit by the spider webs by her, and then she'll kind of just attack you with a melee attack and just does a good amount of damage, especially if you're not a strength drain aura or healing aura to heal that damage back up. Ultimately, we do not end up beating her this time and end up losing this attempt. I end up dying, so I was like, well, it's not really worth it to try this on my other characters. I tried it for a little bit, I was like, this is just not going to work, and I'll lose all my defenses before I'm able to beat it, so I just cut my losses and just end the level. But the nice part is that we hit level 74, and on level 74 we get access to mythical gear, and mythical gear is much better than godly gear and everything before it. Now that said, we need to go to a specific level to grind some mythical gear, or at least we can get some better mythical gear from these levels. So what I end up doing is going to the summit on Insane Hardcore Mix Mode. Now, I have to do the summit since it's a further map in the campaign, so we should have a higher chance of getting mythical gear on the later waves. And mix mode is basically a way to get more loot by making enemies spawn be a bit more random. Basically, it mixes up the enemy spawn, so you'll end up with a lot of one enemy at a time, or just random enemies. Like you'll see a lot of Dark Elf Warriors or Mages. And it also causes Wyverns to spawn in the regular spawn points. You won't see the reverse of enemies spawning in where the Wyverns spawn, because they would die. But for the most part, mixed mode just kind of puts random enemies everywhere. And is actually really useful because you get a little bit more loot from it, and better loot from it as well. Same with hardcore. The setup we have is similar to the Insane Hardcore campaign setup we used. Also, since I have a Genie now, it is much easier to upgrade everything since we have a ton of mana coming in, which also leads to us getting further and further into the level because we'll have more upgrades on every tower instead of just the key important ones. When you're doing Wave 15 on the summit, you also get 4 Dragon Pets, or I get 4 Dragon Pets because I have 4 characters out. And I wanted to try to use them on the Spider Queen boss. Though the ones I got didn't roll really good stats, so I don't think they'll be that useful to me. But so I decide instead I'll just go for all 25 waves so I can get more mythical gear. You'll see at the end of the rounds I'm picking up mythical gear just throughout the round just so I can see if I get anything that's useful in the shop to upgrade my characters with. I will be showing my characters at the end of this, but we actually do manage to beat all 25 waves and we're getting a ton of mythical gear, so we can actually very customize our armor sets on each character and make sure we have enough mana to upgrade them as well, because all these mythical drops that are useless to us, like all these weapons that we're getting, we can just sell them back to the shop or they'll get auto sold, and it gives us a ton of mana to work with, which is really useful for upgrading all our stats on all our gear, and basically increases our stats almost twofold just from all these upgrades. That said, the drafts we actually got from this were worse than the ones we got on Hall of Court, which is kind of funny because this is technically the harder map. So, go figure, right? And now that we're reaching the end of the episode, I will show off all my stats on my characters. All characters now have mythical sets, which give plus 30% to all stats, which is huge. Leon, stat-wise, is pretty meh, but his auras get the job done, and his DPS is still quite good with the boost. Keel has the best base stats right now, or best stats I should say, not base stats. But he has reached 930 tower damage stat while having 300 plus in other tower stats. Deft, focusing a lot more on tower damage to increase the buff beam's tower damage buff. Some focus on the other stats as well, increase those buffs as well. And now we have Silas, who's kind of just a worse version of Keel right now, but he still has very good stats, and he should be used in pretty much every map because all his fireball towers and the daily striker towers are very useful. Alright guys, with that, I will see you next time.